joining us today on Playing the Field. I'm Maria Serrao, and we are back at SoFi Stadium, and that means that football season is right around the corner. Now, I have been camping all over Southern California with our good friend Nick Hamilton from Nightcast Media, and we're going to catch up with him all about camp. But coming up first, our very good friend Jourdan Rodrigue from The Athletic. She will be joining us on her great new podcast series that she just completed. So don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back. Well, there is really nothing I like more than talking about football and going behind the scenes, and we are going to do that today with my very good friend Jourdan Rodrigue from The Athletic. Jourdan, welcome first of all.
Thank you so much. I love being here with you. We always have the best conversations, and so I'm glad we're just doing it with the camera in front of us.
We're just doing it with the camera in front of us, but to talk about the project that you have been working on for over a year. It's called the Playcallers. It's a podcast, and if you have not yet listened to this, all I can say is I'm getting chills. 5 episodes, and we'll touch upon the first one because I don't want to spoil the surprise for anyone, but can I tell you, I was listening to the first one and I, again, getting chills and just picturing in my mind all of these amazing coaches and the job that you did with them, and really your description of them is so perfect and so much fun to listen to. So let's first dig in on the podcast itself. When did you think of doing this? What was the thought?
Yeah, so I first thought about this story. It was the first sort of drips and drops of an idea back in 2020 when Sean McVay hires Brandon Staley and they start installing a new defense that is sort of trickling up from college concepts and also borrowed from Vic Fangio, the godfather of defense, right, of this modern defense. And the way that the two clashed in practice as they were installing this system, it was the perfect foil to Sean McVay's offense, which we know stems from the Shanahan tree. So you started studying tree rings and how concepts and philosophies clash against each other, and how the people who run those concepts and philosophies also clash together. And then I started digging into, well, these guys all started their careers essentially in very similar places, in some ways working with each other under Kyle Shanahan as well. And there was a story there. There was something to be told about this arc of modern football that we're looking at right now, the dominant offensive and defensive systems in the league, and how they started to form and what happens, how football works, how football happens, and what happens when systems and people clash against each other, and what's created out of those ripple effects.
And I think the most amazing thing is when you listen to the coaches talk, first of all, they're all insane, but none more insane than Kyle Shanahan. He is certifiable, and I mean that really in the very best way, the best compliment, but you can see the football turning in his mind when you listen to him talk, when he talks about football, because he's constantly thinking of different ways to make it better. And we have learned out through Sean for years now that I think it was even Cooper Kupp that once said when he's in the room, sometimes he'll be up on the board. And I loved what you said about Kyle Shanahan, how he'll write something on the board and then he'll write it in another color and then he writes it in another color. And you could almost see in his mind, he's thinking of all of these different things, and they may not make sense to anybody yet, but they will.
Yeah, it was really interesting. These coaches were so candid, and what I learned, I think one of the biggest overarching themes in the reporting and writing and audio of this series was what it takes to do this job at the highest level, what it takes to be a head coach in the NFL, particularly at such a young age, which all of the main characters, quote unquote, in this story are, were either 40 or younger when they got their first head coaching jobs.
Which is really crazy.
Yeah, which is crazy. And then the toll that it takes on you, but also the mental fortitude and the way you have to sort of accept your own, to put it, in your words, that, and again, we mean this politely, but to accept your own insanity and to accept your own obsessiveness, because you're trying to evolve and you're trying to find the next thing and you're trying to innovate, and all the while you're competing against the same dudes who know you the best on the planet because you all came up together. And it was a fascinating experience that really pulled back the curtain of what it really means to be a head coach in the NFL. Again, this generation of head coaches, I call it, the Y generation of coaching, because they're always challenging themselves and each other. Why are we doing this? Why does this concept exist? What makes it better? How can we make it better? Instead of saying, well, I've always done things this way, so we're going to do it this way. Instead, it's, why not try it this other way? And it's really interesting because that sort of thinking is very attuned to what modern players want. They want the answers to the test, and they want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And it was fascinating to see. I mean, even little details like you mentioned, the way Kyle Shanahan draws plays on his whiteboard, he draws them in layers. So every outcome or possible scenario that a play could have, he draws over the top of the previous layer with a different colored marker on his whiteboard. And I'm staring at it, and on the one hand, when you first look at it, it looks like ancient symbols, right? But then the more you look at it, the more it becomes this like tangible thing that's alive, and it makes total sense somehow.
Right.
Even though when you first glance at it, you're like, someone has just like scribbled on the walls here, but like then you start looking at it and you start understanding what it's actually happening. And then in the beginning of the series, as you said, he sort of takes you through his process. It's just fascinating.
Who surprised you the most?
Well, Kyle's candidness surprised me the most because these guys are all very paranoid, as we know.
Yes.
And so his candidness and talking about his process and what he believes in and where he gets his ideas was very surprising. Mike McDaniel, I think when I've heard from people on the outside, he's the one who has surprised people on the outside the most.
Right.
Because the way that he thinks is very interesting, and he gets so granular with his process and how he comes up with plays. Like, he tells a story in a later episode of he was fast asleep, and all of a sudden he just is like sits up like a shot and has this idea about this play that they then run, and it's specific to a left-handed quarterback, and like it gets him a touchdown. And it's so, and I won't give too many spoilers away, but getting so in depth on how you come up with ideas and the creative process behind coaching and play design and scheme. It's a very technical podcast series, a narrative series, but it also is not exclusive in the way that it brings people into what it means, and you can understand things as they talk about them because they're being coaches. They're teaching you as they go.
They're teaching you, and also what I love about it is, first of all, you are a great storyteller, okay? Because this takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and they opened up to you, which was really nice. They were comfortable, and you're telling little stories as you go. And I think that for most people, especially if you love football, you love sort of, again, like peeling away the curtain and saying, okay, how does this actually happen?
Yeah.
And what I also really liked was, because there's a lot of new ideas, it also kind of brings in, I remember reading a book that Bill Walsh wrote many years ago, and he also had his own ideas about coaching, and he wanted Joe Montana to do it exactly the way he wanted him to do it, and didn't want to change the plays because he knew this was the winning way to do it. So it's just interesting though that all of the coaches, they all want to formulate something different, but they all have something in their head that they think is going to work.
Yeah,
so it's amazing.
Thank you very much, Maria. But it's their identity, right?
Yes.
Football is them. Football is them, right? They're so intertwined, and I said they're fated for each other. They're also sort of doomed for each other within this sport, because not only are they all competing to be first on the next innovation loop, as we call it in the series, but also they're showing you who they are through what they create in terms of the scheme that they build and how they do it. You can see it in the way that they try to differentiate themselves from each other, running similar concepts and language, but in different ways. You see it in the different ways that either do or do not empower their players to take ownership and autonomy of what they're doing and that creation process. You can also see it in the way that they think about the overarching game in general and the philosophies of it. So I wanted to make sure that through the lens of football, these guys' personalities came through. And my guess going into it was that if I could just get them really talking deep about football, then their personalities would start to manifest through that conversation. And what I would have to do in a challenge as a storyteller is pull at little threads to make sure that those personalities were showing up in that way as I was hearing and feeling it at the time.
Did you ever feel overwhelmed because it was so much information?
I was not necessarily overwhelmed by the information, but the amount that they communicated. We had like 80 hours of audio, and we had to get it down to 5-hour-long episodes. And and this is not just Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, Mike McDaniel. It's Robert Saleh, it's Brandon Staley, it's Raheem Morris, it's Andrew Whitworth, it's Robert Griffin. It's so many people that are a part, have fingerprints and little strands of DNA within these tree rings. And the thing that became overwhelming was football is so vast.
Yes.
And what I had to keep recommitting to and reminding myself was, you're not going to tell the entire story of football.
No.
You have to pull out a sliver of a tree ring that's happening right now and explain why it matters. And I just kept sort of recentering myself in that way when I would get overwhelmed by the amount of content and audio that we were getting. And my two producers, Mike Smeltz and Kent Garrison, were so supportive. I mean, the travel involved in this project was absolutely insane, and they would start setting their alarms whenever I was like taking a red eye or whatever, so that they could text me and be supportive before I'd go into an interview. And they were incredibly creative.
How can people listen to it? Because I have The Athletic. How do they listen to it?
Yes, so you can find the Playcallers wherever you get your podcasts. We're in our own RSS feed right now, Apple, Spotify, again, anywhere you get your podcasts. And then we also have existed in the Athletic Football Show podcast feed. And then you can find it also pinned to the top of my Twitter profile at Jourdan_Rodrigue, or linked on my Instagram at Jourdan_Rodrigue.
Very good. Well, Jourdan, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and talking about the Playcallers. It's amazing, and I can't wait for the next project.
Thank you. I need to sleep first, and then we'll talk. Yeah.
By the way, this is how I knew that Sean McVay would not quit his job. I said, what is he going to do at 4 o'clock in the morning when he gets up?
Right.
TV people usually don't get up that early. So
I know.
I knew
he was never. He's like I said, they're all fated for this job, and they're sort of doomed for it too.
He's a McVay. He's not going anywhere. All right, we'll be right back. We are back, and joining me now on set at our Super SoFi set is Nick Hamilton. You know him from Nightcast Media. I know him because we have been camping for the last, glamping, camping, football camping with the Chargers, the Rams, and the Dallas Cowboys next for the last month.
Yeah, it's been a lot. We've been racking up a lot of frequent flyer miles when it comes to these football media streets. So, yeah, it's been a lot.
We certainly have. Now, we're going to break it down for you, but I have to start with the Dallas Cowboys only because people always say to me, why are the Dallas Cowboys here? And that's because they have been coming to California for years and years and years. Jerry loves the fact that, let's face it, he's got a huge fan base in California now. So, and it's like about, 50 degrees cooler than Dallas. So they come to Oxnard. So it's just been crazy with all three camps. Now, for me, the Cowboys, when you go to that camp, I think that the way that they sort of separate all of the wide receivers, the running backs, gives you an opportunity to kind of see each section working together. And you and I have talked about this. It's a very complete team, okay? Well, let's break it down. Look at the wide receivers. Let's talk about that, because I think that is their best section there.
Well, if you look at the wide receivers, obviously the talent that CeeDee Lamb has when it comes to just what he can do, he can stretch the field and be able to be open and really be able to move, keep the chains moving on the offensive side of the ball. So I think that you have other wide receivers as well, but I think when you look at CeeDee Lamb, when you look at the other wide receivers that the Cowboys have, I think they have a pretty much a balanced attack as far as the receivers go.
Right. Brandon Cooks also.
Cooks as well.
Ram, Veteran, exactly. And we're going to hear from him in just a little while. But when it comes to running backs, I know that, again, they did lose Zeke, but you know what? I think that he needed to fit in somewhere else. He's going to be much better off the Cowboy roster. But Tony Pollard, I just think he is the man. And Deuce Vaughn, I mean, all the players are this tall, and Deuce comes in about here, but he is fast. Is he not fast?
Are you trying to say he can't ride a ride at Magic Mountain?
And hey, listen, we are at a Rams-Raider game right now, so we could hear it. It's always good. I like hearing Raider fans. It's fun.
I mean, when you look at the running backs, when I spoke with Tony Pollard, I mean, him now being the #1 guy and the guy that's not only going to be able to take majority of the snaps,
right,
but also to be able to mentor younger guys like Deuce Vaughn, who's been absolutely incredible.
Amazing.
I mean, when you go to Cowboys camp, as you mentioned, there have been a lot of things that you see. I mean, you see how the fans ingratiate the players. I mean, Deuce Vaughn, I was sitting there watching him. They were yelling out, "Deuce is loose.
Deuce, yes.
Deuce." I mean, they were K-State, you know, and him being, and when I spoke with him, you know, him being getting acclimated to the new offense with McCarthy and, you know, obviously Dak Prescott having a little bit more freedom with that offense as well. He's exciting. I mean, he's an exciting player to watch. I mean, his body movements reminds me of Darren Sproles with a pinch of Barry Sanders.
Yes, I didn't want to be disrespectful.
When it comes to the movements,
say that.
But he's a very patient runner to be a young player. And then you got a guy like Tony Pollard who he can learn from. He's willing to learn from, and that's the key right there, to be able to know your role, as they say, and shut your mouth and execute the way you need to execute.
Now, Nick and I were very busy at Cowboy Camp. He had a chance to catch up with Deuce Vaughn. I had a chance to sit down with Brandon Cooks, so let's take a look. We are now joined by Brandon Cooks. Brandon, this is a new experience for you being with the Dallas Cowboys. What has this transition been like so far?
It's been great. You know, teammates, great coaching staff, great atmosphere. I've just been having fun again, really.
You know, it's so interesting when you talk about the fun part of it, because I've always thought that having chemistry in football is so very important, and it's like going to a new family, and you've had different opportunities. What makes this such a strong family bond?
I would say just the emphasis that Coach talks about, you know, kind of building that brotherhood, building those bonds, not just talk about it, but also giving us the time to be able to do that. And so, you know, we have little team events here, and guys being able to get together on and off the field. I think naturally that's how you build that. So when you get on the field, that chemistry, you know, presents itself a lot easier. When
you come to a new team, do you have sort of preconceived ideas in your head as a player as to how it might be versus how it is?
No, it's just one of those things. You know, I come into something and I just take it. You know, I just sit back, observe, and kind of just see, you know, what that standard is like for that team, and see how I can fit in and be able to enhance that standard.
What's this offense been like working in it so far?
It's been fun. Attack. That's what Coach talks about. Attack, not letting the defense dictate anything, but, you know, attack on our terms, and that's awesome.
Lastly, what's it like being back in California?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, this never gets old. You know, especially during this time of the year when you know, the weather's so beautiful like this. So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
well, it's always fun to catch up with you. Of course, all the fans know you from when you were around, and we had lots of fun with you then too.
Yes, it's great to talk with you. Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you.
All right, Deuce, man, you're here at Dallas Cowboys training camp. Seem like you're tearing it up. You're getting a lot of reps. How has that helped you develop as a running back and being acclimated to this here offense?
It's been huge. Of course, you get in and you get to OTAs, you start to learn the playbook, and you come out here and you get to kind of put it live a little bit. And being a sponge has been the biggest thing for myself, learning from the coaches, learning from the players that have been here before me, and just learning how to practice like a pro, learning how to get everything you can out of practice every single day. And, man, I'm super excited for looking forward, and it's been a great 2.5 weeks so far.
What have you learned so much from Tony Pollard? You talk about learning from the vets and the players, but Tony Pollard specifically, how's he been able to help you and become a better back and being acclimated to this offense?
Yeah, the biggest thing for myself that I learned from Tony is just the way to come out here and practice every single day, the way to finish runs, the way to go through your progressions and then your eye reads whenever it comes to protections and things like that, and just learn all the little things that helped him over these past 5 years in the league, you know what I'm saying? And I'm super excited to have somebody like that in this running back room, and to study behind.
Now, you've been to a major program at K-State, but have you ever been engulfed and ingratiated the way you have by Dallas Cowboy Nation and the fan base here, who's really, I saw you the last time I was here there, and they were asking you, they were begging you for autographs, screaming your name. How has that helped you just confidence-wise, and what has that been like for you?
Oh, that's huge, especially coming from Kansas State, man. That's one of the best fan bases in college football in general. I mean, talk about selling every single game, and those fans bleed purple, and to come here and have that kind of same heartwarming kind of welcome is really, really, really cool. And it's big because, like you said, that belief factor that there's people behind you whenever you're about to come out here and play this game that you love, and it doesn't get much better than that, man. So I'm super excited.
Moving on to our Los Angeles Rams and our Los Angeles Chargers. Both teams this week had joint practices. The Chargers with the Saints, the Rams with the Raiders. And I have to tell you, I got more out of those practices, and I think the players do, because as the starters told us, you know, it's difficult because in these preseason games, the starters don't play. So they actually get an opportunity to get out there. They're actually running plays, and they get to be more involved in the game.
But I also think it's a brilliant opportunity for them to get some other competition outside of themselves. You know, you hear players a lot of times say, you know what, I'm tired of seeing the same guy. They love their teammates, but it just gets repetitive. And so to break that monotony, you do get other teams that can come in with the pads on and be able to give some type of close to full contact and simulate a real life game. And I think, to me, from the Rams and the Raiders, I mean, it's always a fight every year. I mean, you can put your money down on what day it's going to be, either the first day or the second day, but there's going to be some type of fight going on. And this year, it was Max Crosby against Cam Akers. And not only
it wasn't a real fight, though. It was just a little pushing, a little shoving.
Yeah, but it carried over to Twitter. And so now Cam Akers was going back and forth with a lot of fans, Raider fans, Rams fans, about the Max Crosby incident. And then you heard even Matthew Stafford say, hey, Max Crosby kept yelling out, sack, every time he was out there on the field. So it's fun, it's great to see.
It is.
And you know, you get a kind of a slight barometer when it comes to where you think your team is as they prepare for the regular season.
Absolutely. And also, I think for the Rams, we're looking at a very young team this year with a lot of veteran leadership, like a Matthew Stafford, a Cam Akers. You've got the stalwarts that are still there, Rob Havenstein. So that's good, but really there are a lot of young players. So there's a lot of really good energy, but there's probably going to be some mistakes as well. I did have a chance to sit down with Michael Hoyt the other day at camp, and here's what he had to say. We are now joined by Michael Hoyt. Michael, this has been a really good 2 days of practicing with the Raiders. How is this different from a preseason game?
Well, I think the biggest difference is that you get the starters out there. So you're going against ones, you're going against their starters. You got to see their looks and, you know, their offensive style, what they run, the personnel type of stuff, where they're trying to hit the run game. It's very different than going against our guys for camp. And then as far as a preseason game, like, yeah, I guess you have the starters out there. So it makes a big difference.
What's it like being on the sideline for a preseason game and wanting to be out there but just observing? What do you learn?
I mean, those games are a lot of fun. So, I mean, we try and stay dialed in. We get the call, you know, we run through our own checks, take mental reps. But I think we're just out there celebrating, like, the young guys who are out there making plays. And it's fun to see them go, you know, get sacks, make TFLs, go try and win the game.
It's so funny because a lot of the coaches will talk about, for some guys, it's the first time they've ever been out on a pro field, and they try to calm them down a little bit. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, definitely. And it's almost you get through your game day routine. Like, you can show up to the stadium and we get there 3-4 hours before the game. And if you're too energized at the beginning, by the time kickoff comes, you're like out of gas. So I think it's a good run through of like, hey, this is how you prepare for a game. This is how, when you need to start turning it on. And then it's a good routine for us all to get into.
Sean McVay talked about your progression over the last couple of years. For you, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been all over the place in my NFL career. I started off practice squad and then, you know, made the roster my second year, you know, found a way to keep myself on the roster doing special teams. And, you know, that was a ton of fun. And, you know, my mentality coming to the NFL was just, I will find any job and do any job to stay here. And that's pretty apparent. And, you know, I think credit to the coaches, like, they've kept me around, they've believed in me, and, you know, they've developed me into, you know, what we're seeing out there. And, you know, I'm really thankful for them for sticking around. I think we got a great set of coaches, and I've learned a ton. So it's been a lot of fun.
They've moved you around, too, on the line. How long does that take before you learn a new position out on the line?
You get more comfortable with it with reps, but, you know, the way our defense works is, you know, it's kind of just X's on the play sheet, and we can plug and play guys different places. It's the same thing that we do, move an AD around to get good matchups that we want, or move them to a side to make sure that we get the slide, the protection. You know, so when we install the defense, I think they do a good job about, you know, the whole concept, and then you can plug and play guys all over the place. So, you know, as far as schematically, I already kind of knew, at least in the rush and the run game stuff, and then the coverage was, that's what OTAs are for.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this has been It's a very young team this year, but the energy has been unbelievable. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it back in OTAs, but it kind of feels like none of us have been in the NFL long enough to have any bad habits, and so we all are really energized. And I feel like with a young group, we have a lot of ownership over the team. We get to make it ours, and we got to set good culture and set new standards. And the team feels like the players, and that's obviously very intentional. The coaches want it that way, and I think we play our best when it's just the 11 guys out there on the field, and we're the ones talking. What's the down and distance? What's the situation? And it's a lot of fun to play like that.
Now, Nick, the Los Angeles Chargers, have to be probably one of the most interesting teams in the NFL this year. They should be a top 10 team. They've got Justin Herbert, who's arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But last year, he went like this instead of going like this. So he has got to be better. They have Kellen Moore this year, who was the offensive coordinator in Dallas for many years. He is now working with Justin, with the Chargers. Where is the disconnect with this team?
You know what? That's a great question, because when I look at the overall team, I look at the defense. Obviously, you got Derwin James who can beat you inside and out. You have Joey Bosa. You have countless other guys that are on that defensive front, interior, and in the secondary.
Yes.
So I like what I see on the defensive side. The thing I have a question about is offense. I love Kellen Moore. I think they're going to air it out a lot. The bombs, red glare. It's going to be like the 4th of July. They're going to be airing out so many rockets and stuff.
Yeah,
it's going to be ridiculous.
the wide receivers are going to be so excited.
Here's the thing. Keenan Allen is definitely a top receiver. But my question is always the Anthony Davis of football, better known as Mike Williams. Can Mike Williams stay healthy? Can he stay healthy an entire season?
Yes.
Even when I asked him, I know you got maybe a little bit perturbed, but hey, I got to ask those questions because some of the fans are asking those same questions.
They are.
Can you stay healthy? What are you going to do different to stay healthy? Is it nutrition? Is it preparation? Is it maybe more significant rest? Is it, is it castor oil? Is it motor oil rubbing? I don't know what you got to do, but damn it, you got to stay healthy.
Something.
Tylenol, Advil, whatever you got to get. Damn it, you got to stay healthy because you are a core piece. He's better than 50-50. This man, when he's healthy, is 70-30, 80-20 when it comes to catching ball. So when you got a guy like Justin Herbert under center with a quarterback of his stature, who's a top 10 quarterback, you got to be able to be healthy in order for him, that offense to flourish, to be able to move the chains down the field and score on drives and score often. Because you got a tough schedule as well with the Chargers. They open up against the Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa. They got something to prove this year, especially Tua, as far as health and what that team can do. They're going to have some division opponents against the Las Vegas Raiders, Kansas City Chiefs, and Pat Mahomes. I'm not worried about Denver. I don't really care.
But with Sean Payton in Denver, things they're going to be more interesting.
As soon as they get rid of Russell Wilson, I think Russell Wilson is a superb quarterback, but I think he's past his prime. I'm sorry. I think Russell Wilson is what you see is what you get. He may have a few more things that Sean Payton can bring out in his armor, but for the most part, what is that Denver Broncos offense, rather? What are they going to bring significantly that we haven't seen before?
Well, we're going to find out, that's for sure, but you're right, that division is really tough, and honestly, the Chargers are going to have to be on their A game every week in the NFL. There's no question. Well, that was camp. The regular season will start on September the 7th. That's Thursday night. The Rams will be at Seattle, as Nick mentioned earlier, and the Chargers will play against Miami right here at SoFi Stadium. Nick, it was such a pleasure to have you on today. It's always fun to talk football with you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Camping was fun. I'm ready for the regular season. Let's get it on.
Yeah, now we're ready to move on from camping to the big stage. All right, that will do it for today's show. Remember, you can watch Playing the Field 24/7 at playingthefieldtv.com. I'm Maria Serrao. Thank you so much for watching today, and we'll see you next time.